Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Zhong Xu, who is the CEO and founder of Deliverect and also our newest global industry partner. So welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Really great to be part of this.
Well, look, we've been talking for quite a while on all kinds of subjects because we keep running into each other at all these global conferences and trade shows and things. So we're on the same circuit. But I know that you really have a history, prior to Deliverect. And I think it's actually important to understand where somebody's coming from. So if you don't mind, before we talk about Deliverect itself, can you just talk about your prior life in the industry? And then we can talk about Deliverect and what got you there and the purpose.
Yeah, for sure. I have been almost all my life in the restaurant software industry. Always helping restaurants from very young age on. I mean, almost 20 years. So I'm not that old, but I started at age 16, 17, as my father had a point of sale company for Asian restaurant in Europe. Right. So not by choice, but if you have an Asian dad, you tend to start to work very young on. He told me, hey, you need to help out. You need to create websites for Asian restaurants. And that's how, I started in that side of the business. But one of my, I think, biggest worry, and, a lot of restaurants understand that, is that point of sales is not always that easy. He had a traditional point of sale system where, you always need to go on site to make changes and so on. So that was one of my biggest fears, is how am I ever going to take over that business? I don't want to drive everywhere to, update a menu, make a change. So actually, I went then after I was, at that age, study software engineering. I learned how to code. I learned how to create mobile applications. So actually, when the iPhone 1 came out, I thought, wow, that's the game-changing moment. So when iPad 1 came out, I created one of the first iPad point of sales. It was a company called POS iOS. And, I scaled that quite quickly globally. I started that in 2011, and in 2014, I even merged that with a bigger company today that is public called Lightspeed, right? So in these years prior to Deliverect, I scaled the restaurant software that we created over 100,000 restaurants around the world, basically really bringing the cloud to the restaurant space.
I think if we're talking about generations, though, of technology in the food service industry globally, you really came in at the early start of the next generation systems that were going to be hosted cloud-based, because before that, they weren't that way, but you really got in on the ground floor. It sounds like you found an opportunity and a niche in something that was a need, but you actually had the vision to see where it was going to go.
People always ask me where I get my ideas from. It's quite simple. It's really listening to restaurants. If there's enough restaurant complaining, especially if it's globally, about, look, this is not scalable. How can we, move in the next wave of digitalization? That's how I come up with my ideas. And as an engineer, I tend to create solutions. And if there's enough restaurant using it, especially globally, there's something there, and you need to scale it. And due to our backgrounds and my backgrounds, I mean, it's important for me to always pay it back to the restaurant industry. I grew up in that space. My whole livelihood has been supporting restaurants. They gave a lot to me, so that's really my
back
aim
as well. Well, as I take a look at it, you also have a number of things that gave you an advantage to what you were doing. First, you had a very global vision and you had global experience. So a lot of people, when they design systems for our industry, do not necessarily have that global view. You also had an Asian father, as you said, who told you what you were going to do in the industry and really got you started young, which is great because you got to learn from the ground floor up. But I would also say that if anyone takes a look at developing applications in the industry, I think there are probably two applications that are very difficult. One is Asian applications and the other is pizza. And those seem to be, for some reason, just very special applications when you take a look at who designs for what.
I think it's more about, minorities have, especially restaurants, it's often started by ethnic minorities. And, there's a lot of workflows that are very specific, right? And I think, especially in restaurant, it's very much service oriented, right? You as restaurant service your end customers, but restaurants also demand the same level of service and workflows that is all possible to make their life easier. So I think that's why it's quite complex often. It's not actually only the software part. It's the whole customer journey for a restaurant to use your software, right? It's not when you have installed it, you're done. It's about customer service, after sales, continuous improving your systems.
So if we take a look at this and you get your inspiration from listening to the restaurateurs and the industry and with your background, what was the idea? What was the thing that created Deliverect?
So as we were scaling, restaurant point of sale, I think similar to that was a new wave of cloud-based where, the legacy payment system and point of sale were very hard to innovate. That was the next wave. And actually, the extra iteration on top of that was, and I had this idea in 2016-17, where a restaurant telling me, Zhong, there's something more special happening. Before, all our revenue are dine-in, right? People walk in, order in our restaurant. And even in 2016-17, they said, hey, look, 10%, 20%, 30%, and even 40% of our revenue is coming through digital channels. And it's coming from these players that we never heard of, like Uber Eats suddenly arrives, right? You have DoorDash, Deliverect. I mean, we are also used to this, but these companies don't exist for decades. They are new incumbent players. And when they told me that, I'm like, hey, how hard can it be? But if you saw the complexity of number of
was that a statement you live to regret? How hard can it be? Or did it turn out to be how hard can it be?
I thought that how hard can it be to manage that? So look, as a point of sale company, and that's why every point of sale company worked with us, we thought, hey, look, let's make that ourselves. And after, I think, a couple months, quickly we regretted and understood the complexity of, connecting all these number of digital channels. Because the world is ever changing. It's not just being on these marketplaces that is enough. If you fast forward today, you're thinking about, as a restaurant, I need to be digital everywhere. So it's not only about Uber Eats, DoorDash, Deliveroo, Grubhub, but I need to sell on social channels. I need to sell on Facebook. I need to sell on Instagram. TikTok is massive these days. I need to be on WhatsApp. I need to be on Messenger. I need to be on Meta, right? So the number of ways where an end customer of a restaurant is interacting with you as a restaurant is exploding. And the reason I started Deliverect was these restaurants that were early on saw this, and they said, one of the things that we really worry about is we don't want to end up as the retail side where it's Amazon, or in the hotel side where you have Priceline
and they take the control.
Take the control. So if we know that digital is going to happen, how do we keep control? And that's really the fundamental why Deliverect is built. We built a software.
So hang on a second. So it's a fundamental. So one of the unique talking points about Deliverect is you're keeping control with the restaurant operator themselves.
Exactly. I think one of the business model we have is people always ask us, why don't you charge money? Does a marketplace pay you guys? Or who are your customers? Our own and sole customers are the restaurant. Right. And the reason is they are, as they are our customers, they tell us what to do and nobody else. And this has really helped us to accelerate because restaurants around the world are, helping us to push for a common cause to keep control, although the world of digitalization is changing constantly, right? So you want to keep the data. You want to make sure you control what's selling. You want to control your product. You want to control, your high margin channels. Mm-hmm. So that's what we provide these restaurants.
Zhong Xu, the CEO and founder of Deliverect, our newest global industry partner, and welcome to the IFBTA.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.